Have it on the acknowledgement.
We are just getting the live stream running.
Oh, okay.
In a couple of moments, here we go. All right. Welcome, everyone, to another Upper Peninsula Environmental Coalition live stream. I'm Evan Zimmerman. I'm your host, present here with my co-host, Horst Schmidt. And we are happy to bring you another presentation by Kathleen Heideman. And we'd like to start every single one of our live streams with our mission statement and a land acknowledgement. As the longest-serving environmental organization in Michigan's UP, the Upper Peninsula Environmental Coalition strives to preserve and enhance the unique cultural and natural resources of the Upper Peninsula through public education, the promotion of sound land stewardship, science-based decisions and policies, and reasoned dialogues with communities, governments, industries, and others with whom we share this land. The Upper Peninsula Environmental Coalition recognizes the tribal nations of this territory. We acknowledge that we stand upon the ancestral homelands of the Anishinaabe. In doing so, we seek to heal traumas inflicted by an ongoing history of colonization and correct intergenerational justice. And Horst, why don't you introduce Kathleen once again for part two for us?
Thank you. As you've noticed in the past month, matter of fact, it's been 1 month since the new administration took office, and it's turned into basically a rout almost of all of our protections. And so Kathleen Heideman, our speaker tonight and our mining expert, is very timely in terms of what's happening with mining and how we're going to be affected in the next 4 years. She's not going to predict it, but I'm sure she'll touch on it. So, and I think it's really important for us to realize how much more endangered our environment is, because all of the federal type of mining regulations are being pulled back, and so we're worried about whether or not we're going to have an environment that we can live in safely. So I want to let everyone know that Kathleen Heideman has been doing mining work at least 10 to 15 years now, and she has done wonderful work in stopping the mine at the Back 40 mine in southeastern UP, and has done a lot of work to help out other groups here and in Wisconsin and Minnesota. So it's great for her to be able to speak here and present part two of her 3-part series. She will be back again next month on the third Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And so we hope that you will be able to join us at that time as well. So Kathleen, I'll stop rambling and let you take over from here.
Well, thanks, Horst. You've said so much, I probably don't even need to say half of what I was planning on saying. Thanks a lot, everybody. And if you can just mute yourselves, and we'll get going. Can everybody hear me okay? Thumbs up if it's good. Yep, good. Okay. So tonight we're going to be talking about the project RevX and Eagle Mine. And RevX is a new person on the new entity on the local map. They're not actually on the map yet. It's very hard to get a sense of exactly what they're going to be doing. But they're proposing a battery metals facility in Marquette County in conjunction with Eagle Mine's Humboldt Mill. And they've mostly been discussing it in the form of press releases and happy announcements about their funding, and very few details yet. They're not applying for any permits themselves, RevX, but they're based in the Keweenaw. And So bonus I threw in, we're going to be talking about the mine permit and the air permit, which are going to share the same public hearing. We'll start with a little poem, which is my sort of a land acknowledgement. This is a view of the ore trucks going up to Eagle Mine when they first put in the new road. This is what's seen and isn't seen, which was actually inspired by the air permit, the first air permit for Eagle Mine. Just now, the setting sun has dwindled to a brilliant prick of light caught in the mesh bag of black spruce rimming the pond. September is dwindling. The geese say it is so overhead, seeking water to rest for the night. Somewhere miles from here, a man walks into a bar. His hands ache. He's got mud on his boots and black lube on his jeans. He knows what's a mile below the surface, an ore body giving up her secrets. All day he had his hands round her neck, logging cores. In the distance, they're venting the stack, so what's being blasted underground blows out over the world. You can't hear the particles dropping, but they do. Sulfide, copper, nickel, aluminum, a laundry list of parameters of concern. Last week, brain researchers announced they'd found nanoparticles of magnetite quite different from the nanoparticles of magnetite previously found inside the human brain. These nanoparticles of magnetite are rounded and not encased in biofilm, meaning the human organism is not protected from them. These nanoparticles were inhaled from car exhaust, industrial stacks. These nanoparticles are lodged inside the brain, a little part of us. It's a sort of intimacy. It's a sort of terror to think about it. What's seen and unseen, floating like dust motes in your brain's sunny living room. If I hold my breath like this, I hear the world more keenly. An ore truck accelerating uphill, leaving the mine gate with a full load of shattered, shimmering earth, wolves keening in the west. That man in the bar is saying it pays the bills. There is a tiny howl lodged deep inside my brain. If I howl, the wolves will answer. There is nothing I can do to make the mine truck turn its black head and answer. Well, at least that's how it seemed that day. Maybe there are things we can do to get the mine truck to turn our way. I wanted to share a few images to set the stage for what we're talking about. To begin, this is historical extraction. This is the North Jackson mine and that took place in Negaunee. This was iron ore mine in Negaunee that followed the open pits. This is the volunteer mine, which would have been in what is now Palmer. And that was followed by a period of deforestation, cutting the trees so that they would be hauled underground for bracing up the mines, making railroads, making pretty much everything, including some of those shaft houses that you first saw. Everything was made of wood. There's still virgin white pine rotting in mines underground all over the UP. We have historic mining scars visible from space. On the left, we have the Empire mine, which is still Empire and Tilden operations, which is still ongoing. We have the White Pine Mine in the middle. That's a historic tailing basin on the edge of Lake Superior that is visible from space as well. Both of those are seen by the space station astronauts going around. And then this one on the right, I've added, this is a view of the caving grounds, subsidences that went all the way to the surface and destroyed about half of Negaunee. And this is from the Moss and Negaunee mines area historically. So you can see the city just sort of ends where those begin, but the city used to extend much further and over the top of some of these mines. Then we have historic extraction period, the Empire Tilden and their tailing basins, just really vivid, and not a lot of people realize there aren't any good views unless you happen to look out the window as you're flying into the UP. And, you know, this is ongoing. These are current settling basins in use with very high dams that are some of the most dangerous dam structures in Michigan. You know, they're tall and they're made out of tailings. They're not made out of cement like water dams are. And then we also have the risk always of collapse from mining. We have historic mine cave-ins. This is an image taken by a local reporter. These happen all over in the woods around all of our iron ranges in Negaunee, which is a threat to people still. This is a small one. This is a big one. This is a historic mine cave-in, and this was down in Crystal Falls, but this is an intentional result of intentional mining methods. So this is called the sub-level caving system, and they intentionally do this. You know, the surface is devalued. What they're after is the ore, and it was effective and still is effective to have the surface cave in as you've taken not just the ore out, but all the support columns that you leave in place until you take those last support columns and then you weaken it and it collapses. This is a strategic collapse. This is an accidental collapse. Similar system though. This is Ropes Gold Mine historically in Ishpeming. And then here you can see historic mine cave-in Negaunee. On the surface, the miners eating their lunch felt the ground quiver violently and watched in horror as a great funnel-shaped chasm opened up. The shaft was quickly filling up with water and sand, better known as quicksand, and word was sent to other mines in the area to send pumps for the rescue effort. It was an appalling loss of life and structures, and those cave-ins are still there. Abandoned mines and mills. This one is the Humboldt Mill, which was renovated, upscaled, fixed up, and turned into the Humboldt Mill that is currently Eagle Mines Mill down at Humboldt Mill. They use the same site. What you can see in this map is, I mean, in this photo is the abandoned mine and mill. Cyanide contamination found in that big building where they were having to check every part of the dust, literally, because cyanide was used when this was used for Ropes Gold Mine. So the cyanide contamination in the building had to be remediated. You can see, you know, ruins to the left side of the image, big ruined buildings that were left. I mean, this was just abandoned. In the foreground with the arrows pointing in, you can see acid mine drainage. That's pyritic mine. That's like iron acidic mine drainage. But it's, you know, you can see it seeping all over. They buried piles of rock that had pyrite in it. And so, you know, the interesting thing is that this mill had been owned by Cleveland Cliffs. I mean, they're still in existence. So you have unremediated projects, and you don't have anybody going after these still existing companies to clean it up. You know, now Eagle Mine touts that they fixed it all up, but they're doing their own form of environmental damages at the same time. So here is overexploitation. This is a modern sinkhole, they call it, but it's collapse. It's a mine collapse, and it's in Candelaria, which is one of Lundine's copper mines. This is down in Chile, and the Candelaria formation at Alcaparrosa mine is part of the Candelaria group. This is one of Lundine's seven, you know, seven mines on their website. Candelaria is one of their main things. They call it a small copper mine now that they were forced to shut it down by the government. But this is a brand new announcement as of the end of January. They were initially facing $13 million of fines, and now they've apparently whittled it down to $3 million in fines and some change. But they had to close this mine. And it's not clear how they'll remediate it. It's like 600 feet deep, 650 probably. And basically they got greedy and went too close to the river or under the river, and the aquifer around the river. So, all right. That takes us to contemporary maps showing where we're talking about today. This is a map of the mining threats around Lake Superior that was put together by Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission. What's interesting to me is, we just are so busy and kind of overwhelmed sometimes just talking about the mining threats right in our own backyard in Marquette County and the Western UP, but they're in the Minnesota side. They're all over the northern shore of Lake Superior. So Lake Superior is being threatened from all directions. And just to blow up our area, this is a geological map of the UP, the Western UP, and I've dropped in just sort of where the mine and their interests are. So here you have the Highland Copperwood Mine and White Pine North, those two blue triangles, and their mining interests. They're exploring other sites up in the Keweenaw. Then you have Perseverance Metals, which is taking over the Voyager lands. That big Voyager lands package is about 500,000 acres. That's in the central part of the Keweenaw down to the state line of Wisconsin. Then you have the Talon, Michigan nickel properties, Sweetwater, royalties, UPEC, and Rio Tinto. They've just handed these minerals back and forth between these companies. It was Rio Tinto, originally the Ford properties, Rio Tinto, Kennecott, UPEC. Then they couldn't keep them and they gave them to Sweetwater Royalties, which sold them to Talon, which is actually a Rio Tinto partner. So it's a complicated web of earning in interests and royalties and agreements that last, as long as a mortgage, basically. It's probably still Rio Tinto that's in charge of most of that, but Talon is now in the area and exploring. Then we have Lundin, which is Eagle Mine and the Humboldt Mill. And then around the top pink dot, you have the pink triangle that I've marked is the Eagle Block. Those are mineral lease area or mineral rights, mineral properties, underground properties for the most part. The mineral rights that Lundin kept when Rio Tinto sold off the rest of the Ford block to UPEC. And then we have Cleveland Cliffs, Empire Mine, and Tilden Mine, right in Marquette County. And then the area that is being explored and acquired for exploration by Keweenaw Land Association. They had 500,000 acres of trees historically, all the way back to the end of the Civil War, but they sold off all of their timber surface and retained all of the underground mineral rights, severing 500,000 acres in the process. So they're trying to be a big landowner, controlling royalties in the future in the UP. And then you have the Gold Resources Back 40 project and their exploration sites as well. All right, so this is another view of it, showing you the location of Eagle Mine up in the top, closest to Lake Superior and Big Bay. And then the star indicates roughly where the Humboldt Mill is. And so this map, led Eagle Mine, Rio Tinto back in the day, to want to connect those two red dots and make a short haul road that went right through the middle of the county, through wilderness and, 12.5 stream crossings. So that wilderness road proposal was kiboshed, fought hard and put away wet, but they have to haul their ore from the mine to the mill. And that is the route outlined in thick red that they haul every day from the mine to the mill. And then the truck goes back empty to the mine from the mill. That's what's been happening. That red line in the middle of the squiggle, that's the road that never got built, the 595 proposal. Here is a close-up of the Humboldt mine. This is an old map, which I love old maps because they show you stuff that the new ones sort of have overwritten. And what you can see in here is that the land around the Humboldt, well, I'll zoom in later. The land around the Humboldt mine, or the Humboldt mill now, contained lots of tailing ponds. Tailing ponds are where they dumped the milled material from their process. So first they dumped the iron tailings to the southwest and the southeast, and further to the southwest and the southeast, and further to the east. You can barely see that over on the edge. Some of the piles around there are man-made and some of them are natural. And then the pit in the center, the biggest structure right in the top middle, that's the Humboldt pit now. That is what filled with water after the open pit mine was done and has become the Humboldt pit. So here's the Humboldt pit today. The mill is at the bottom of the screen. And what you can see that is marked with the red star is kind of where the water treatment end of things is. Highway 41 goes by on the top, right up here. So you're driving by on Highway 41. You see a big building here, actually two big buildings now. That's the business end of the pit where the water would be flowing this way. And up here, you can see the Escanaba River. Middle branch of the Escanaba River is up there. And then down here is where they're milling the material that comes from Eagle. The trucks come in and go around and get ground up, and then they dump all the waste right here into the pit. All of the waste is ground as fine as talcum powder before it's dumped in there. And then right in here is a railroad that picks up all of the semi-refined product. So here is another image of the Humboldt mill. And you can see the Humboldt pit is a different color than the natural water bodies around it. So here's an overview. Sorry, I'm just gonna. Lundin has repeatedly talked about looking to extend the life of Eagle Mine. So the original ore body Eagle Mine was permitted in roughly about 2010. Permits were coming in, and it commenced mining in 2014. Then it was extended. The life of the mine was extended when they, quote, found, Eagle East. And then they've extended again. This last year, they found the upper Eagle East, or the Keel deposit. My prediction is that there'll be more, but they're currently slated to end mining in 2029. You can see in the foreground here, this is the pipe that is the mine portal. This goes down into the ground. This is the side of Eagle Rock. This is Eagle Rock here. You have the development rock up here. This is what has been considered waste rock that they bring up and then mix with cement and water and send back underground as backfill to make sure that the mine doesn't collapse. They're backfilling it as they go. Way over here in the far, you can see this in the far distance, there's a long, wide, thin rectangle. That's the spot where all the treated water is being infiltrated into the ground. It disappears into the ground and goes into the superficial aquifer. And then you can see the land dips down sharply as it goes off to the northeast, and you can see the Huron Mountains in the distance. Here is Eagle Mine again, and there's the portal right at number 3, kind of right up here. Number 2 is actually outside of the main mine facility fence line. It's right on the Salmon Trout River, right here. And this silo is about 65 feet tall. That silo is a big ventilation pipe that emits air from underground. And originally, it was supposed to have a whole bag filter system on it that was going to take all of the rock dust and other contaminants that would come up from underground and filter it like a big vacuum cleaner bag. But after they proposed it, they removed that and said it wasn't feasible. And so they've been operating without any filtration system catching the dust that comes up from underground. Not just the dust, but emissions from vehicles and nitrates from the explosions when they blast underground, all of that. And then this is what it looks like from the ground. It's hard to get a scale, but like I said, that stack is roughly 65, 70 feet tall. And it is emitting all of the air from underground, partly, when they've blasted, it's probably going to have more material that it has to vent out. But then partly it's also just exhausting the mine air so that there's another spot where clean air is coming in, and that allows for the mine to be good air for the people who are working underground. Like I said earlier, a lot of what they have been proposing has been coming to us in the form of press releases. The other thing they like to do is say that they talk about it in public information sessions. The mine does in the fall. This one was probably this press release came out right after they held a meeting. This is 2017, and they were already talking about changes to the facility tailings disposal site, which had been used at that point for probably 3 years. Of note, this article shows you that they were planning to place about 75 feet of tailings in the pit, leaving around 120 feet of water between the sulfide-bearing tailings and the surface. 120 feet of water over the top, basically. So keep that in mind, 120 feet of a freshwater cap. And when they say that they're putting their tailings in the bottom of that pit, it's also, the pit already contains 200 feet of tailings from the Ropes gold mine. So their tailings are deposited on top of other people's tailings. The difference between the two is that the Ropes gold mine was using cyanide leach as their method to recover gold. And so, the bottom tailings have different contaminants than the upper ones do. So at that time, I'll just say, those of us who attended the hearings and public meetings and sat with them at their facility to go over their plans, they had an expert named Devin Kostendijk, who was an expert on pit lake hydrology, the chemical makeup of the different layers of pit lakes and how they could be used safely to accept tailing waste. And in 2017 to accept more tailing waste because they wanted to expand and increase the amount of tailing waste that they put in the pit, which would make less of a freshwater cap. And so they brought in their expert, and he gave us like a 4-hour lecture with slides at NMU, assuring us that this is the best technological solution for dealing with with tailings, because it's the freshwater cap basically protects the tailings, which are reactive in the presence of oxygen, from being able to oxidize and then leach into the environment. Those tailings have a lot of potential acid generation, and so they would contaminate the water around them if they were allowed to reach the surface layer and then potentially be eliminated as part of their NPDES permit. The National Pollution Discharge Elimination System handles the water that comes out of that pit and goes toward the river. This image here, I just put in to show you that they're still exploring up on the Yellow Dog. The two yellow dots are the Eagle East on the east side and the Eagle ore body on the west side. You know, I hope they don't find more, but they keep talking about extending the life, extending the life, extending the life of the mine. When I said in my comments about this project that, you know, I'm taking it personally, my father and mother-in-law's work, their life's work was protecting land over on this side, just a couple of miles on the west side of Eagle. And so we're adjacent landowners to Eagle Mine, and we've worked really hard with the Yellow Dog watershed over the years to protect these lands and wetlands out on the Yellow Dog Plains. So I take what they're doing very seriously, and I try to keep up on it. I mean, that's full disclosure, my stake in all this, you know, that I care about the wetlands that are underneath this hash mark system for the Eagle Block. It's hard to visualize it if you're looking at this picture from this side to this side of this kind of colored part of the block. That's about what we're looking at now in here from one side to the other. So here, this blue line here should actually be angled up so that it comes out maybe up here by the word infrastructure, because they go into the mine and this ramp right up about here, and then they angle down towards the Eagle ore body. They come into it in the middle. They've gone to the bottom, they went up to the top, and then they started building this giant ramp at the bottom. So the bottom of the ore body was about 1,000 feet down. And then the proposed Eagle East stopes, it looks like a big shoe down here. That is 3,000 feet down. So the Eagle ore body was all that was considered initially, because, you know, every estimate, whether it was how much waste it would produce, how many ore trucks would be hauling, what the air pollution would be, what the life of mine would be, everything was based on this ore body. And then they put in all of this and got that permitted without changing their initial environmental impact assessment. And then now this is the shoe again down here that's depicted in the first image, the shoe of Eagle East. Now they're coming into the top and calling it the Keel deposit. And probably there's a whole bunch in here that they haven't connected up yet that they'll be telling us about in the future. And possibly below it, you can see that their exploration holes go well past the bottom of Eagle East, and they're hoping for a conduit that is rich below Eagle East, which would be, you know, going down into the 4,000 foot level probably. So I like to say this is a full side view now. You can see Eagle ore body. This is Eagle rock up here, this little bump. This is the conduit coming in that they're driving down this far, the ramp. Then this is their spiral to the bottom and then spiral over to Eagle East. Here's the Eagle East keel zone. And you can see the red is the massive sulfide and the semi-massive sulfide, and that just tells you how high the sulfide amount is. Sulfide is the most reactive part of the ore body. And the fact that it has a lot of massive sulfides means that that's where the high amounts of valuable metals and rare earths and not just valuable metals that they talk about a lot, like the copper and the nickel, but also the platinum group elements. They make as much from just a handful of the little things that they take out of the ore body as they do on the copper and the nickel. And so here is a chart that we should all be aware of showing that their copper production is decreasing annually. So 2023, down to 2027 projection. And they've extended it beyond that now to 2029 potentially, but it's not clear what their copper production would be in the 2027 to 2029 years. You should also know that their nickel production is decreasing similarly. So even though, they're still finding more ore bodies doing the spider instead of an eagle, they've turned into a spider. They're not finding the quantity that the original eagle ore body had. And so then their 2024 production was reduced greatly due to a partial underground closure. Again, that's called a fall of ground. I don't care if they call it a sinkhole or underground collapse or a cave-in. They're all variations of mining-induced cave-ins. This one, I actually FOIA'd for some of the information. They were shut down for May through October. In that period, probably through the end of September, I guess, they had much reduced ore. So it was reduced from 13,000 tons down to 7,000 to 9,000 tons for copper or for nickel, for example. So then here is the fall of ground. We did a FOIA request and got the data from the Mine Safety and Health Administration, which shows that, or Mine Health and Safety Administration, they basically were showing the collapse took place in the tunnel closest to Eagle East. It showed the cause was bolt corrosion, which is interesting since that's the newest part of their operation. But the deeper they get, the more salt and corrosive material, is present in the water and the ore that they're in. They blamed it on bolt corrosion, safety issues, inexperienced miners, but also Lundin was pushing against the mine closure almost from the beginning, and you can see it in the documents. They were pushing hard to go in, pushing against the mine inspector, and he had to keep saying, like, no means no, like you have to wait until, and he broke it up into small, this one right over here says he had to break up the request into smaller actions and then approve each little tiny action because they thought that any little thing got approved, they could bring miners back down there. So also in the process, I found they had nearly $300,000 worth of citations and fines against Eagle and Cementation, which was their underground backfill LLC, a contractor that they were working with. So they actually fired Cementation, and but the fines are primarily from 2023 to 2024. It would be really interesting to dig deeper into that. But they talk a lot about how environmentally safe they are and how safe they are for miners. So the ore body collapse happened somewhere down here in the Eagle East zone. That was in the tunnel, sorry, not an ore body collapse. So again, the ore is shipped to Humboldt for processing. They don't do any of the milling up at the mine. So they call that the subaqueous tailings waste disposal facility. This thing right here, it's actually not considered a lake. In Michigan, it's considered a disposal facility, as if it were a sewage pit or something at a sewage treatment plant. So even though it is filled with toxic tailings and it is not treated as a lake, it has animals that get into it. It has birds that fish out of it or fly over or land on it. I mean, there's no big sign for the birds saying keep out. So it's super frustrating thinking about the presence of this pit in the environment, especially so close to the middle branch of the Escanaba River up here. I wanted to point out that in 2019, their annual report for the mill said that 17 nests were active in the heron rookery that is, I'll just show you right kind of down here. on this side of the mill. There's a heron rookery. So the heron rookery appears robust and unaffected by mill operations. And then in 2023, they report the bald eagle nest on the edge of the lake was in good condition, but no occupation for the third consecutive year. And the blue heron rookery appears to have been abandoned as well. So, it's just very interesting that when they mention the heron rookery in 2019, that, it's still robust and unaffected. Later, when it's abandoned, they don't say it was affected by mill operations. The reverse is not true. So makes a person question whether it's unaffected by mill operations. I guess myself, that's the conclusion I come to. It was affected by mill operations. Eagle Mine, they say, has 470 employees working at the mine and Humboldt Mill. It's a big deal. The former director of the mine said the mine has to do everything it can to extend the life of the mine and maximize what it can get out of the resource. It's estimated to generate 4.3 billion for Michigan's economy, it says. Then it says Eagle apply. This is another statement from Eagle. It says that they employ 400 people. 75% from the local community, but they don't actually have any way of gauging whether they're from the local community. They've admitted that for years. So their employment statistics vary widely. Also note that their employees work 4 days, 10 hours daily. That's the 4-hour day, a 4-day, 10 hours daily, intense week. I'm not sure whether that, has anything to do with how accidents happen in a 10-hour work week. But so again, the ore is shipped to Humboldt Mill. It's processed down to the size of flour, and then the waste is put in this lake. This is the water treatment plant on the north side that you're looking at. So from the beginning, they had a separate mine permit application for the use of the mill, which they had to renovate in order to use. But it had its own, under Part 632, the mining law in Michigan, you have to remediate a property when you're done. You don't just leave your mines anymore, sitting around waiting for some other company to come, decades later and fix it up or get the cyanide out of the ground. The mill is under Part 632. It has its own permit for the milling operation, and it is supposed to be remediated when it's done. It's supposed to be closed and cleaned up. And from the beginning, I mean, for us, the beginning, I guess, is the 2017 experts that they had, Castendike and his friends, telling us that the pit lake could achieve healthy closure conditions with 200 and some feet of water over the top of the tailings, freshwater cap, subaqueous tailing solution being the very best technological. This guy has studied tailings all over the world and concludes that this is safe. This would be the way to do it. But now Eagle Mine has announced that this is from last year. They're saying that last year's annual report, they say they want to study 2 potential closure options for the mill site. Option 1 is to sell the mill to another mining company or another industry that wishes to use the existing mill HTDF, which is the Humboldt Tailing Disposal Facility, and the mill wastewater treatment plant for ore processing and disposal of tailings and other waste. Achieving this requires a prospective buyer as well as available room within the HTDF for the storage of additional tailings. So every time they find another ore body, the freshwater cap gets smaller and smaller on this pit full of their waste. And so, when they're ready to close down, that pit is going to be very full. And that doesn't allow for another buyer to come in and reuse the mill and this handy pit that they can dump all their waste in. So they prefer this option of selling Humboldt Mill and tailings waste disposal facility, and this requires them to get available storage for waste. So they say they're thoroughly investigating and preparing to execute option 2 in fulfillment of the conditions under the existing mine permit. However, given the recent regional exploration of mineral resources within and near the Upper Peninsula, Upper Peninsula, as if like they're going to start shipping junk from other states here, option 1 cannot be ruled out at this time. Option 1, which again was not in the original mine permit, hence the exact closure plan for the mill remains under development. This just torques me. I feel like, you know, the mine permits for Eagle Mine have been a very flexible and ever-changing thing from the beginning, but the mill has had so many revisions of its water treatment and how the pit, you know, was supposed to have this beautiful freshwater cap over it that just got fuller and fuller and fuller. And so here you can see them talking about how they did a trade-off study. Eagle Mine did a trade-off study to evaluate the placement of tailings in the underground mine as paste backfill, which would involve pressing their tailings slurry at the mill, transferring the water, that's the supernatant, back to the HTDF, putting it back in the pit, basically putting the dirty water back in the pit and transferring the tailings back to the mine. So that is something that I assure you was not studied in any of the original mine permit process. Nobody talked about shipping all the tailings back to Eagle Mine. So here they say, since the tailings themselves are not the primary driver of water treatment and the tailings slurry water has been determined to be the driver of water treatment, this option would still require the treatment of the dewatered tailings liquid, meaning they can't stop treating their water just because they do this. So it's just an added expense, basically. And considering this, and that the HTDF has the volume capacity for the current mineral resource to meet their closure requirements, it was determined that the plan to add additional tailings to the HTDF is the better option, both financially and environmentally. And then they say mining of the keel zone, that's the third ore body thing that they've identified, will increase the mine life, will reduce the thickness of the water cover. However, the water thickness will still be greater than 3 meters. That's approximately 9 feet. Just to back up, the original permit was for a 200-foot water cap, right? They got their permit for the mill saying they would have a fresh water cap of approximately 200 feet over the waste to keep it from being reactive. And now they're down to a 9-foot expectation for similar to other tailing ponds. As such, no significant environmental change is expected. Predictive models of closure condition indicate that both the mine and the mill will meet water quality and environmental criteria specified in the mine permit within a few years at the end of operation. So nevertheless, even though they did their own study, they concluded that keeping the tailings in the pit was the better option financially and environmentally, and that the mill would be able to achieve water quality specified in their permits within a few years of the end of operations, meaning they'd have to treat the water for a couple of years before it could safely, you know, go to the Escanaba River without their intervention. Now they're planning on backfilling Eagle Mine with what they call eagle paste. Now, as a poet, I just want to say, I think they need a poet working for them, because eagle paste is really the wrong phrase to be using to describe what they are making there. But eagle paste is going to be their dewatered tailing paste. Dewatered is not really the same thing as dry, I guess. Otherwise, I guess they would just say dry tailing paste or desiccated. But this is all a total reversal of their original position on the Humboldt Mill tailings. And when I say a total reversal, like total reversal of everything they've published literally since 2017 about their HTDF being this best of breed solution, environmentally great solution for tailings, especially potentially reactive mine tailing. So that's where we're at now. Now comes along RevX Technologies, which is based in the Keweenaw. Eagle Mine is an official partner now with RevX Technologies. RevX Technologies also calls itself RevX Metals, Rev Nickel, and they've changed their mind a couple of times. I mean, their name was changed a couple of times before they went even to RevX. I don't recall the first name, but they just they just became a company registered in the state of Michigan as of 2023. And the metals economy that they're talking about is wanting to be a leader in sustainable processing and production of nickel. So, you know, they sound like they'd be a great partner for Eagle Mine, but mine ore concentrate is only one part of it. They also want to deal with tailings waste, and they want to recycle lithium-ion batteries. Again, I cannot find a single document about RevX's plans. They're talking about building something that first they said would be under construction right now. Now they're saying maybe it's going to be built this middle of this year, but moving forward, they want to mix all of the tailings into a filter cake, quote, almost like a sand type product, haul that back up to the mine, mix that with cement, then fill the voids in the mine with paste rather than cemented rock. And so this is happening. Eagle Mine and RevX Technologies, they just keep announcing things in the public, even though like, so all the stuff that I had prior was from like newspaper clippings. Some of these are talking about the Rev Nickel project. Now they're calling it a RevX Reclaim, Recover, and Reclaim, Recover, and there's one more. Anyway, they just, I feel like they have maybe too many people doing spreadsheets or slideshows and not enough people actually working on the permitting part of it. But here is them working with the pilot plant, they said, at Eagle Mine Humboldt Mill, testing the pyrrhotite and trying to extract that from the tailings. RevX is operating with, they've got a grant from Michigan Tech. They're part of the Michigan Tech Smart Zone. They've announced that they got a Department of Energy grant, and they were awarded a state grant as well. The CEO, John Rockwell, is a Michigan Tech alum, and he has Silicon Valley connections. He's announcing here plans to utilize waste material in the creation of green nickel concentrate. So just to be clear, green nickel is not a thing. It's just a term that the mining industry created to separate it from, I guess, you know, mined nickel, but this is still mined nickel. It's just mined nickel that a mine threw into a pit. Because the plant, the Humboldt Mill, is not able to extract all the nickel. So they're literally flushing a lot of their nickel and copper and other things into the Humboldt pit every day that they're operating. So RevX has planned to begin construction of the mine tailing reclamation and lithium-ion battery recovery plant. So they're saying also that they're going to be shredding batteries into black mass. And black mass is pictured here with something from the Argonne National Laboratories. And it's considered very hazardous process. If they're doing it on a massive scale here, much less, I mean, in Michigan, much less like, you know, at the edge of Humboldt pit, like the concern that I have off the top of my head about just that aspect of it is it's wonderful and all, but like the UP is not the primary producer of lithium-ion batteries. So they'll be shipping them here from elsewhere in the country, which would make Humboldt even more of a concentrated recipient of waste. Because Humboldt is already a concentrated recipient of mine waste, environmental and industrial, you know, implications that come along with that. So RevX Technology said that it was eligible for like $145 million for its nickel project. They want to have 3 related facilities processing mine scrap, residual nickel, backfill, nickel iron sulfide, and producing 16,000 tons of black mass from used batteries. That's a lot. And so here is the news announcement about their nickel project getting federal government grant, as well as state grant. They're talking about turning waste into something of value. Again, because, they're doing this through their website and they're doing it through press releases. You cannot find a single file on the state system that is mentioning RevX. So they're not the permittee in this whole thing. But Department of Energy gave them a grant, and so this is their website. They're definitely a little notch above our usual category of startup buffoons when it comes to exploration of nickel and copper in the UP. They seem very serious and well funded, but they are still dealing with Lundin, who is their partner now, and Eagle Mine critical and strategic minerals. Their press releases are full of how we need these critical materials for the U.S. This is due to, the critical and strategic minerals announcements, trying to protect our national security and our national supply chain, because, we have things that then get shipped abroad, or we have materials that we need that we don't even have a mine source of in the U.S. So Trump had previously asked the USGS to identify critical and strategic minerals, make a big list of them, and figure out how much we have and how to secure the supply chain. But everything that goes to Eagle Mine and it comes out of Eagle Mine is getting shipped to Canada for refining. We don't have smelters here. So it gets on these mineral range railroads, cars that are going, that's the Humboldt Mill behind it. And then it's sent to the Sioux, and then it's sent up into Canada, probably to Sudbury. From there, it's probably going down to ship to get onto international ships in the St. Lawrence Seaway. They have international buyers. These are not coming straight back to the U.S. battery needs, and they're certainly not being sent direct. Those cars are not going down to Detroit. So RevX Technology, RevNickel, Eagle Pace Facility, they're now calling themselves the Refine, Recover, and Reclaim Facilities. But again, they're blowing through a lot of these deadlines. They're supposed to be completing a site acquisition for all this, and I have no idea still where the whole thing is going to take place, but their grant might be frozen because this is from two different sources in Michigan, reporting that the federal loans all got frozen from the Department of Energy, awaiting review. And I believe that, since this has to do with battery manufacturing and clean energy, it might be in the frozen pile of funding right now. And then the Rev Nickel project, they say, is going to be extending the life of Eagle Mine, sustainable long-term future for Eagle Mine. Well, the sustainable long-term future of Eagle Mine, sustainable is the wrong word. Long-term, from the beginning, Eagle Mine only had a 9 to 10 year life, and now that's been slightly extended by additional ore bodies. But I don't even know what they mean when they're talking about it. So I'm just sharing this to show you that you need to question some of the conversation that's taking place around this project. There is no way to make Eagle Mine a long-term sustainable future. It is a short-term, non-renewable ore body that they're backfilling as they go. So they're not going to go down and widen the holes or anything like that. They could find another ore body, but that's not what Rev Nickel is going to be doing. So a little confusing. Here are things that everybody can do to take action on this. I feel like it's sliding through without anyone paying attention to the details of Eagle Mine and RevX. On one hand, it's complicated because, if I see oh, they're going to be recycling batteries, that's a good thing. It is, but I mean, there's still no details on that aspect of it, and we're potentially permitting changes to the material coming up from the Humboldt Mill now. So there's going to be a public hearing on February 25th, and public comments are due March 17th. Those two dates and deadlines are related to the air permit, and I didn't even entirely understand because of the way it's written, but basically the mining permit has gotten stuck inside the public hearing on the 25th. So the mining permit amendment is going to be handled like a duck stuck inside of a turkey. They're going to push it into a public information session at the beginning of the public hearing on the air permit. That's when we get to have a public hearing on the mine itself, on the mine permit amendment. So that's really unfortunate. The public comments due March 17th are for the air permit. And then the public comments on the mining permit have a different deadline. I think that's the 25th for the mining permit amendment. So here is the announcement about the air permit. And all that they really indicated with the air permit was that if you read down on this side, an amendment to the mining permit is also required for this project. Therefore, the Eagle Geologic Resources Management Division, which is now GRMD, their acronym has changed. They used to be Office of Oil, Gas, and Minerals. But the same group, basically, it's they're going to be, quote, providing information during the meeting. But when you read it closer, they're not just providing information, they're holding a public hearing within the other public hearing. So it's a little screwy. I feel like the state of Michigan should get an earful about that. It's very undemocratic, I think. So the permitting concerns, like what do we talk about during a public hearing? Like up here, I'll just rephrase kind of what they're saying. They're requesting here's one sentence summary. They're requesting to install and operate a paste backfill process at the mine and to increase the ore trucking limit in their existing permit. So super stripped down and simple, right? They want to have a paste backfill process and they want to increase the ore trucking limit, like basically how many trucks can run per hour. And this is just ore trucks, only ore trucks. They're already running like, I think the most I've ever seen is about 9 in a single hour. But that's just ore trucks. They can have 12 gravel trucks full of rock from quarries all in a row going up to the mine. They're also hauling sand up there and cement for their operation for the backfill they're already doing. So this is in addition to all that, the gravel trucks from the quarries and the sand and the cement, the Portland cement that's going up there. None of that is covered by the ore trucking limit. That's outside of this air permit. They've never had a calculation for all of the volatile organic compounds coming from truck emission for all of those things. And they're not required to, apparently, under the rules. So, but a request like this must have an air permit before any of the proposed changes can happen. So the permit limits the release of air pollutants and ensures the request will meet air quality standards, including health-based standards. Conditions include limits on air emissions and requirements to install and operate equipment to protect public health and environment. Air permit may have requirements to test equipment. All right, so with that in mind, here is the stack again. And I would say may require testing of the equipment is just really egregious. Please, if you do nothing else, request that they do conformational stack testing of their exhaust. They've not done that since the beginning of the mine, even though they've changed their permits multiple times. That's the exhaust going up in the air. And, even though it might look like water vapor, that is not just water vapor. So their pollution control equipment, underground, they have to do dust suppression. That's all that's required in terms of controlling emissions above ground. Everything gets blasted out through that stack. And so the permit concern that I would share is the only stack test for the MVAR, the main vent air raise, was done on September 16th, 2014, and that was before it was completely operational. They chose to, I think, intentionally misinterpret the comments of a lot of concerned citizens back then. People wanted to have a confirmation of how the stack was going to work and how it would operate and how well it would take out, any emissions. That was, initially when there was going to be a bag filter on it, and then the bag filter was removed. So people demanded an early confirmation and then wanted regular testing, like maybe annually. That's never happened. And also, there's never any detailed testing of the contaminants. The stack test was done for the particulate matter, and that's all. The stack test confirmed how it was handling particulate matter. So the actual parameters in the emission limits, there's only 3 of them. One is particulate matter, like how they are limiting it, and it's limited to 232 pounds of particulate matter coming out of the stack every day per 24 hours. 232 pounds a day coming out of that stack right next to the wetlands of the Salmon Trout River. Then the nickel is 0.21 pounds of nickel per day within that, it's part of the particulate matter. And then copper is 0.18 pounds per day. And, it's not a separate piece of copper that comes up. It's all part of the particulate matter. But, you have no way of knowing if they're actually meeting that because they only tested once. And that was before they were actually at full operation. It's kind of bewildering to me. Plus, the way the whole thing is evaluated on a daily basis is that they do visible emissions from the stack. They look at it, and it shall not exceed a 6-minute average of a 5% opacity, like it's a grayscale. So, I mean, that's just, it's not the best available technology, but that's where we're at with an air permit. Air permits are exercises in frustration, I think, for a lot of people who even try to make sense of it. It's very technical. And then after all that technical stuff, you get down to like, hey, it's no problem. And we're only, putting limits on 3 things, one of which is 232 pounds of dust blowing out of that stack every day. Here is the current proposed permit language. It says testing. First, records should be maintained on file for a period of 5 years. So, I mean, at this point, they wouldn't even have to have the daily test from the first almost 10 years of the mine's life even on file. But basically, this is saying, upon request of the district supervisor, the permittee shall verify the particulate matter, nickel, and copper emission rates from the stack by testing at the owner's expense. And that's what we need, because this permit is not requiring it. Okay. And I guess that's the main concern I have with the stack and emissions here. And then the new proposal, because like they said, they're planning on bringing up their tailings from the mill, even though there's huge question marks about exactly how that's happening. Here is where they're going to bore a hole right due north of Eagle Rock at that orange square. That's the proposed borehole where they're going to inject the tailings underground. And here's another picture of it showing our second concern with this permit. I mean, even though it's an air permit, this is from the mining. Permit, the draft mining permit. amendment. This is showing the orange dot and Eagle Rock and the mine site in relationship to the underground groundwater flow area. You can see the little arrows and gradations for the groundwater aquifer. Like basically their borehole will be right on the edge of the flow area, which all of the groundwater in the aquifer there is moving to the northeast, where there are ravines, that little hash line there, that's a system of headwater streams that come from springs here and here. And the springs in the ravines are taking water that comes out of the ground much lower than Eagle mine site here. It's the ravines start and flow this way. So the water comes out of the side of the ravine in here and it flows to the northeast here and here. And, you know, their borehole is going to be intersecting with that water flow. They're saying that's not a concern because they're going to use best borehole technologies, I guess, and deliver their slurry of mine tailings directly to the mine, and then use a conduit of pipes to pipe it into all of the parts of the mine where they have to put the slurry of mine waste and cement to permanently harden. So here is the Eagle air quality permit. They're intending to approve the permit. So the language here says it was received, evaluated, and they are intending, we have announced a public comment period on the intent of the department to approve the proposed permit. So they're intending to approve this permit, the air permit, and the paste backfill processes that the air permit covers is really the additional dust and the additional pollution from additional ore trucks going back to the mine site with tailings in them. And that's all that the air permit really covers on the changes. The trucks are proposed to be unloaded here in this is the coarse ore storage building. So the empty trucks normally drive right by it, but here is where the coarse ore is put that the trucks pick up. And now they're going to be dumping their desiccated, dewatered tailings in there as well. And then the tailings are going to be mixed with cement in here and then put down that borehole. And so there's a whole bunch of language in the air permit about how the dust from the cement plant is going to be handled. And, you know, this is semi-enclosed, so the dust from the unloading is going to be in there as well. But, you know, that'll affect air quality, like in this part of the mine site. You know, it's different from the main vent airways. And then here it says there were no additional baseline studies done. There was no environmental impact assessment updated because it's still using the original mine site and it's still using the original, you know, equipment and facility buildings, I guess. So, you know, here, I think they're going to change something at the pit, at the Humboldt pit or at the mill, but here it says the paste plant and tailings will be inside in addition to the COSA, the coarse ore storage area. And they'll mix it with the tailings with binder, cement, and water to produce a paste, which will be pumped into the borehole adjacent to the new site. And water will be sourced from contact water basins, but if needed, also from their groundwater well. So they can pump groundwater, clean groundwater, to mix with tailings. And so they're going to take the water out of the tailings at the mill, and then they're going to add water when it gets back up to the mine site. And then they're going to pass it down through the aquifer, upper and lower levels of the aquifer to the mine workings. And then it'll be pumped from there through an underground distribution pipe network. So this is actually part of the mine permit now. The mine permit amendment which just kind of got glopped onto the air permit amendment conversation. Here is what the air quality people say that they can consider in the hearing. One, technical mistakes. If you find something wrong in their review, technical errors, they can consider that. They can consider grammar and spelling mistakes. Other rules the action should consider and why, or why the action will not follow the rules. Again, this is really, really limited. Over here is a whole list of all the things they can't consider. So nobody pays any attention to noise and lights, zoning issues, anything unrelated to the project, air, land, or water issues not part of the project. And the project is narrowly defined as the addition of the tailings, borehole, and the silo that's mixing cement, and the borehole that brings it underground. So, I mean, in here, I would say, the technical mistake, it isn't that it's necessarily a mistake, but it's an oversight or it was omitted. I mean, I would put omissions under the category of mistakes. So, the fact that things are not considered in the drafting of the permit. Then here's the whole thing that got glopped onto the air quality hearing. A virtual public meeting will be held for the paste backfill project mining permit amendment application. It'll take place during the informational session prior to the public hearing. But I mean, still within the public hearing, it's part of a public hearing. You have an information session at the beginning where the experts talk. So the experts are going to share that time with a public meeting on behalf of those of us who are concerned about the paste backfill project for Eagle Mine, I guess. And so both of them happen at the same time on the February 25th. And we already have other events happening that day too, which is frustrating. So you don't have to pre-register to attend it, but you have to click the link above at the start. So there's an enormous list of files to review, but I've looked through all of the detailed lab reports, and you'd have to have a degree in chemistry to make sense of most of the detailed lab reports. The mine permit amendment application and the EIA have most of the information that's pertinent to anybody who's going to review this. But it's really unfortunate that they're piggybacking one meeting kind of like turducken inside the other, because you only get 3 minutes to comment in a hearing. You're not going to get your 3 minutes to comment on the mine permit and 3 minutes to comment on the air permit, no matter how few people attend. It's really undemocratic. I really feel strongly about this. So here is the Geologic Resources Management Division holding their public meeting inside the other air quality meeting. This was announced after the first one was. So their public comment is going to be extended until March 25th. And they don't even list what they will and will not consider there, but they don't want to hear about anything related to the air permit. They only want to hear about the tailing storage area, the paste backfill plant, which is right next to the COSA tailing storage area, and the borehole. So the borehole, the tailing storage area, and the paste backfill are all really small, like tight together, but then they're going to be distributed underground and go throughout the underground operation. So one permit concern, I mean, when I talk about like how there are omissions, you kind of have to read through things and wonder, like, what didn't they mention? Well, there's, here I went back to a 2007 report that was done for Kennecott when they were planning on using the pit. This is the green pit here where they're putting all their tailings. And when they were planning on doing that, they looked at the historical surface water and they measured water. They measured all over the site. The red spots here are showing where cyanide was found in surface water. You can see cyanide was found in surface water at the confluence of the Escanaba River. Right here, there's a trench that took the water from the pit all the way up to the Escanaba River. It was found here, it was found here at the outfall, and it was found in the pit. And the tailings process that filled half of that pit with tailings was for gold mining. So they were recovering gold from those from that rock. They were recovering with cyanide, which is what contaminated the Humboldt mill. And they talk a lot about contamination in the Humboldt mill and in these discrete spots, but cyanide is not mentioned once in any of the new files from Eagle Mine's mine permit amendment. All of the geological testing they've done of the permit of the backfill paste, nothing mentions cyanide. Cyanide has a chemical makeup that it literally breaks down into like 7 to 9 things, atmospheric, in water, in soil, organically available, non-organically available. And it doesn't really break down. It just gets transported and absorbed. And it's considered toxic to life, plant life, human life, aquatic life. So the idea that it is potentially going to be incorporated into the dry tailings that they move up to the mine site and then dump out on the ground and then, create dust and then pump underground. I find that alarming. But that's just one example. I mean, I just went through everything looking for cyanide and I didn't find anything in the mine permit amendment request. So that just seems like it's an oversight. Also, they're using the same expert, Devin Castendike, who assured us that the best place for the tailings in perpetuity was the Humboldt pit. He's the one cited in the new proposal to ship the tailings up to Eagle Mine. The interesting thing is that they do not explain now we're looking at an air permit and the mining permit amendment for the mine where they're going to put the tailings underground with in the form of paste backfill, but they haven't explained exactly how it's happening here at the mill. So the source part of it isn't explained. It'd be like you're going to build a bridge and you start in the middle and you don't define where it's going to meet up on either end. Like they haven't explained the process yet down at the mill. I'm very frustrated with the application process that they've done. But I mean, I think it's intentional. I actually think that it's a strategic thing to piecemeal a project so that the end of it gets approved before the beginning part of it, the most basic part of how they're taking it out and what the tailings chemistry makeup is down at the mine is really spelled out. So the air permit files are available for review and comment right now. You have to go through the My Enviro portal. So the air division and the water division are modern and they have migrated to the My Enviro portal, which can be a little daunting. If you haven't gone through this before, just go to public notices and you can find Eagle Mine. Otherwise, you could write down this URL bit.ly/3xes01x. Basically, you have to get to the public notice page. You can find the files to download and you can comment. They have a little form that you could use. They prefer getting their comments through the form. But again, that's just air and water divisions of the Michigan Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. The Geological Resources Department is decades behind and does not participate in the My Enviro portal. So you're supposed to email your comments to the permit reviewer directly. I don't know when they're all going to catch up and be in the same system, but that's frustrating. So, there could be stuff happening already in the system with the geological folks, but then they're not in this system, so you can't search for it because they don't publicize things in the same way. If you are interested in trying to track this on a more regular basis, I urge you to be a dissident shareholder of Lundin, you can become a dissident shareholder for $9.10 today. Their stock has taken a beating in the last 6 months to a year. And that is the other thing that we always have to be aware of when they're talking about their projects. They're always talking about the economics of mining, and that's how much it costs to ship things, how much gasoline costs, but also how many people are involved working at the mine, and how expensive it is to get ore out of the ground, but also how valuable it is on the open market. I would just urge everybody to resist plans that turn Lake Superior watershed into a resource colony, which is sort of what we're looking at right now. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'd love to chat. I'm sorry I've gone longer than I anticipated. I did not want to keep you all this long tonight, but thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Kathleen. That was really a massive presentation in terms of the detail and your understanding of it, which is amazing. And it seems like you've been doing more research as we go through this, because we're talking about 12, 15 years now that
Yeah.
somehow or other you've been involved with this.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been tracking the Humboldt from the first permits, and Eagle Mine. I kind of came on board just as the last permits were being granted. Evan, were you and I on joining Save the Wild GP at the same time with that, or that was like 2012? You were joining, right?
Yeah, I started some early volunteer stuff around 2010, but
Uh-huh.
I got more involved as the years went on around that time. So yeah.
Steve and John, sorry, I think we're in it way before me. So hats off to Steve and John.
well,
Yeah, there's been a lot to do all these years. Yeah, thanks so much for that. It was all worthwhile information. It's amazing how they shift their priorities over time.
Yeah,
I-
it's very protean, it's shape shifting all the time. Does anybody have any questions about, how to act on this information, or, concerns that you have that didn't get mentioned?
Well, while we're waiting for people to formulate questions, I would like to ask kind of a long question, which is that when I first became involved in this, I went down to Lansing to talk to what was then called the Department of Environmental Quality, and the management kept telling me how they let a group of persons, I suspect you, about being able to rewrite the mining regulations at that time, and telling me that this was the best mining practices that we have in the country. So I'm just wondering if you have some quick idea of whether or not we have the best, and if we have the best, how much worse is it elsewhere?
Well, I have heard that repeatedly as well, and I was not involved in those years when the law was actually being written they're referring to the sulfide mining regulation, Part 632, because there was a big fight back in 2010 to 2012, 2009 to 2012, maybe, like, trying to craft it, trying to hammer out a protective new law, because prior to that we just had laws for, generic copper mining in a different, era, mostly the vein and amygdaloid copper, and then also the iron mines, and we didn't have the bugaboo of reactive ore bodies, and so the Part 632 legislation was trying to address the potential for catastrophic environmental problems caused by acid mine drainage. And, you know, what I've heard from people who were involved is that some of the best parts of Part 632 ended up on the cutting room floor and didn't make it into the final bill. People who were involved in those negotiations, you know, in crafting Part 632. And then, you know, that the state geologist and the head of the Office of Oil, Gas and Mining, you know, had his finger on the scale in the process, and that things were changed in the very last draft without the group being able to comment on it, but also that the law itself, as written, is not that bad, but it has never been fully enforced. You know, it's like it's the joke about Wagner. It's not as bad as it sounds. You know, it's not as bad as it sounds. I mean, when you read the legislation, it's just not ever been fully enforced. And that's what happens when we have mine permit amendments after mine permit amendments, and a kind of a curtailed public process. And then, you know, the company sort of making up a new closure plan as they go along. You know, the only reason right now that they're changing the whole procedure for the use of tailings is an economic reason. They want to be able to sell the mill to somebody else who wants to fill it back up with garbage. And that's it. It's just an economic reality. It has nothing to do with the best environmental disposal system for reactive tailings. You know, they will put them underground, and they'll be gone long before, you know, any water seeps out of the ravines, and they won't be responsible. Probably much longer residency time than how long it'll be before it starts seeping out of the Humboldt pit into the Escanaba River, you know. But in the meantime, they've been assuring us all the way along that they were paying attention to Part 632 and doing everything properly, and that they're, you know, the best example of an environmentally responsible mine. So that's frustrating. But yeah, I mean, those who were involved in Part 632 have a variety of perspectives on it, as you can imagine. Good question, Horst.
Yeah, well, you know, this is, I don't know if people understand, Part 632 is our regulations for non-ferrous metals. And
Yep.
so that's just one part of it. And then, of course, when you explained the Cleveland Cliffs mining process last month, you know, it doesn't sound any better than what the folks here at the Lundin Company are doing. Is that a fair summation, or am I being prejudiced?
Well, I think in the past we didn't pay attention to the details of the iron mining. Everything was believed to be benign, environmentally benign, related to iron. You know, it was just it's just rust, people. What are you getting excited about? But then, you know, the more you dig into it, the more you realize the amount of selenium they're releasing to the atmosphere or the environment, into the water, the amount of mercury that is being released to the atmosphere from the milling operation. You know, the total environmental impacts. They're different, but they've been around so much longer, you know, like 180 years of iron mining in just our county, that, you know, they're really, they've had time to have a very significant environmental impact, even though we have rules against, you know, the most blatant, you know, dumping tailings directly into a living body of water or something. They are extremely large and get their way a lot. Also, we're in the middle. Thank you for reminding me about the Tilden presentation. We are in a public comment period on the Tilden project as well right now. So we have 3 big permits under review, and I'm really looking forward to anybody stepping up to participate in writing comments. Just reach out to me.
I had a question about those public comments. I don't know anyone who does them better than you and Steve, so I really appreciate all the work you do. And I was just thinking, I'm hoping, we're unfortunately in a period where there's been a lot of government cutbacks to environmental protection positions and
Yeah,
science positions.
yeah.
And the reality, unfortunately, is a lot of these people are going to be scrambling to find new work and applying for jobs and things like that. It's going to take up a lot of time. I'm hoping that in the middle of this, that there will be some people that have, found themselves out of work that have this kind of expertise that might be able to take a look at some of these projects and make some public comments. I wish we could find a patron, someone out there to make like a bounty for someone who could, poke holes in some of these proposals and, like maybe like offer a reward for someone who could, find the holes and find the problems in there, because I'm sure the expertise is out there, but it can be hard to dig through this. Like especially for someone who's just a member of the public who cares about this, that might not have the kind of deep expertise that other people do on it. There must be ways that people can search through these things and maybe find the things, especially with the narrow scope of what they're looking for on the comments. Where are like the weak points in these proposals that, like, let's say an average person could try to do some good and try to find some areas that might actually get some attention with public comments?
Um, that is the $1,000 question. Um, I mean, we're always trying to figure out. I think it's what's not in a permit as opposed to what is in it. They're so narrowly written, and they leave out a lot. I mean, just something as simple as the screen I showed where it said that there was no additional environmental impact study of any kind. Not even one thing was studied um, in the mine permit amendment for doing this. There's zero environmental impact assessment for a significant project. Nothing about, what the residency time in the ground would be for the material before it's mixed with water in the form of, comes out in the form of a spring from the side of the hill. Like it's every permit is so narrowly written that it seems to be, unable to connect the dots to the either time, like a longer term view of the impacts, like outside of, the life of the mine, but like looking forward a few decades, or also where the water will be expressed from the side of the hill is outside of the mine fence line. And when they've done their environmental impact study, they study within the fence line, pointing out that it is not just environmentally just for them to not do environmental impact assessment on a significant new project amendment, pointing out that there are questions of environmental justice. I did note that they poo-pooed the idea of environmental justice in the mining permit amendment, and said that they had done I think in the air permit, they said that they had reviewed the area for those who could not speak English or read and write or something within a 20-mile area of the Eagle Mine facility. But like they're in the middle of the woods. So, I think the primary group that can't speak English and read and write is wildlife up there, but also this is an area that is treaty protected, hunting and gathering, and I'm just one thing, like, just the idea that there could be cyanide in all of the dry tailings that are coming up, just, whatever amount. The limit is actually incredibly small. But if that's in the dust that is being taken up, that's potentially coming out of the trucks all the way from the mill to the mine site. But the air permit only the air permit is only to protect the area where the trucks are unloaded, right? Like just that one little spot, that yellow box that I showed you, when the trucks have the tailings taken out of them at the coarse ore storage area, like that's it. So, who cares, I guess, if dust is billowing out the back of a truck all the way up there? They just have tarps covering the load. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns in this set of permits. Because we haven't seen the mine permit amendments for the Humboldt mill yet. I mean, I have no idea exactly how they're shipping it up or what form it's in, if it'll be kind of dense or if it'll be like sand or if it'll be like dust or it's I mean, in the past, some of these things call it filter cake. I'd say that people who live along the haul route, which extends all the way from Humboldt through Negaunee and Ishpeming and Marquette and past the university and past Tourist Park, all the way up the 595. I mean, all the way up the 550 to Big Bay, along with all the tourists and their bike riders and the hikers, by Sugarloaf. Like, they should be aware of this potential change. It'll affect students at Northern Michigan University and people who are just innocently living along the route. But I don't know that the permits are written in any way to protect people along the route. I don't see that. I don't see it. I mean, they have them have a tarp over their load, and that's it. So there's I hope you hear that I'm frustrated with the way the the permits are written or not written. In terms of finding the hidden thing that'll unlock a significant change in the permits. I mean, the thing that has given us the most traction to protect the environment thus far with our permit review work has been where wetlands were threatened. And we care a lot about wetlands. I mean, that's a personal passion of mine. The work that I do when I'm not caring about mining is wetland protection related. So it just, I feel like we've used our wetlands as dumping grounds for a long time, and that's got to stop, and it certainly has to stop when it comes to iron mining, because they've been impacting wetlands around their operations for 185 years now. So decimating wetlands with, all those tailing basins that I showed you on the map, those ones were wetlands, that just got filled in with tailings by Humboldt Mill. But there's piles like that, or I mean, not piles, but like tailing basins. They might look like just, sand or something now, until it rains and they turn rusty red, but they're around everything in the landscape that had iron mining, all through the Western UP. And most of them are unremediated. I think that wetland remediation is going to be a major concern going forward with mine sites across Upper Michigan. Because a lot of it was left unremediated, not cleaned up by anybody. And so we have a two-pronged thing of trying to not have any additional encroachment on wetlands or wild areas or water, clean water, but then also like trying to address past problems and work to remediate the stuff that's out there. I don't even think we've really started with that. So anyway, good questions. I wish I had better answers.
But we wish that we had better results from the mining companies.
Yeah, we do have the option of taking our resources, taking some of the mining action resources or applying for a new grant and just trying to get a technical review. It's just, like with the emplacement of tailings underground, putting those tailings underground, to me, I have a lot of questions about it, but I've reached out to a whole bunch of experts myself privately, and so far the opinion is quite mixed. Most of them wish that we could just like snap our fingers and instantly transport it all the way from the mine, from the mill up to the mine and underground without having any additional environmental impacts. But I think a lot of people like the idea of, here we have this potential environmental problem. Why don't we just disappear it underground and we'll never have to think about it again in the course of our lives, Um, but we have to make long-term decisions. We have to think about generations before us, but also that are following us. So I always struggle to know what the best long-term solution with some of these problems is. But, we've relied on the experts that the mining companies have had us, listen to in the past, and the experts that the mines have hired to have the permit regulators listen to. And their experts all said, this is the best solution. Leave it in the pit, have a freshwater cap, I get frustrated when the experts are, just shilling for whatever the company wants, month to month or year to year.
Well, I think, what you're really saying is that the company are saying this is the best solution, and it will not upset the powers that be. So I think that's important.
Well, and also they have a new, financial arrangement with RevX. I'm sure they'll get profits from. They were losing valuable minerals, metals, and a Heinz 57 variety of metals is in that pit already. Like if they're able to recover some metals from that pit, then, probably Eagle Mine will benefit from it. They'll benefit from being able to say that they're extending jobs. They'll benefit from being able to say that they're, quote, cleaning up the pit, maybe. I mean, not that it will stay cleaned up. It'll be an empty pit next to a mill, and then we'll have another mine come in, or we'll get mining waste from somewhere else shipped to it. I hope they don't end up putting battery waste into it. I feel like that would make a bad situation worse. But again, we don't have the details on exactly, where the water used in that process will go. I would not want to live in Humboldt. I can say that. I feel like they've gotten the butt end of a whole bunch of environmental and economic decisions in Marquette County.
Okay. Well, I really want to thank you and for giving this talk tonight and enlightening people about the complexities that we rarely can understand if someone who's a technical expert is giving them. So I want to remind people that next month, Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern time, you will be back again, and we will have some interesting discussions, and hopefully people will be aware of it, and realizing the political landscape has changed. Well, it hasn't changed. It's like like a sinkhole at this point that we have to deal with, and people need to be as well informed as possible so that they realize that what is happening in terms of regulations are not for the best for the environment, but they're the best for the companies. So if there's any final comment you want to make, Kathleen?
I would just encourage everybody to not be discouraged by, the difficulty of, I think it's very democratic process to read mining permit applications and kind of educate yourself about the process. This is our commons, our water, our air, our environment, mining companies are short-term, and our concerns are much more long-term for the health of Upper Peninsula outside of any individual, I think short-term economic benefit that an individual company has. So I have left public hearings very empowered. I mean, right now everything feels a little overwhelming, but like I've been in public hearings. I went to one with John Sari down in Menominee, where I've told people I feel like I could have lifted a car off a small child afterwards. Like it just, you felt very powerful in a room filled with people who had concerns and wanted to voice them according to the rules of the regulation that allow for public comment and public hearing. Unfortunately, ever since the pandemic, everything is online. It's not quite the same. You don't see other people in the room with you other than the regulators. So, be prepared for that, but just show up and, participate to the best of your ability and raise your concerns.
Yes, you are not alone.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks so
Thank
much
you.
for everyone's attention tonight.
Thank you,
See you
Kathleen.
next month.
See you then.